You're watching Digital Photography One-on-One, where we answer your questions. Here's your host, Mark Wallace.
One of the most common requests I get in email is for a demonstration of some basic lighting setups. And that's exactly what I'm going to do in this episode. I'm going to show you some setups, and for each of those, I'm going to show you how the lights are set up, talk to you a little bit about the light ratios that are used, and I'll also show you some pictures that I took using each of the setups. So that's a ton of stuff. Let's get started. Our first lighting setup uses two soft boxes, a small one below and a large one right above it. The lighting ratio is 2:1. This is a very basic two-light setup. It consists of a small softbox and a large softbox. The large softbox acts as the key light, and it also illuminates the background. The small softbox acts as a fill light, and the lighting ratio is 2:1. So the small softbox should be about half as bright as the large softbox. And in this lighting setup, you actually shoot right through the softboxes. Our second setup uses a 4x6 softbox with a grid and a large foam core bookend as a reflector. This setup is great for full-length shots and catalog work. You can move the foam core reflector closer for more fill or farther away for less fill. This setup usually uses a 4:1 or 8:1 lighting ratio. This setup is very similar to the previous setup. The difference is that now we're using a beauty dish instead of a large softbox. This gives us light that's a bit harder with a touch more contrast. The lighting ratio is 4:1. This setup is also a two-light setup. It uses a standard head with a honeycomb grid to illuminate the background, and a small softbox to illuminate the subject. We've added a flag to the key light to keep it from spilling on the background. The lighting ratio for the background is 1:1. The key and the background light should meter exactly the same. By simply adding a foam core bookend to this setup, we are able to achieve some amazing results. This is one of my favorite setups, and it uses 6 lights. The key light is a ring flash with a soft light reflector above and to the left of the model. The fill light is a small softbox below and to the right of the model. The lighting ratio for these is 2:1. The key should be 1 stop brighter than the fill. Behind the model are 2 large foam core bookends positioned at 45-degree angles. Use bare lamps to illuminate these. This will give the model very nice soft highlights from behind. These should be 1 stop brighter than the key light, a 2:1 ratio. Behind the bookends, you'll need 2 additional lights to illuminate the background. I use shoot-through umbrellas to evenly distribute the light. These should meter 1 stop above the key light, a 2:1 ratio. To give the model a more dramatic look, I also added 2 subtraction panels, also known as black reflectors, to each side of the model. Here's the actual setup in the studio. You can see the key and fill light in the foreground, and the subtraction panels and foam core bookends on the side. These are the bare lamps illuminating the foam core bookends. There's the one on the left and the one on the right. Here's our fill light and our key light. Now let's take a walk around the side to take a look at the shoot-through umbrellas illuminating the background. These give us a nice, even distribution of light to keep the background perfectly white. This setup uses 5 lights. The key light is a ring flash with a soft light reflector. There are standard heads that are placed behind the model that are used as separation or kicker lights. These lights will need to be flagged to avoid lens flare. 2 more lights with standard heads are used to illuminate the background. The lighting ratio between the key light, which is the ring flash, and the kicker lights is 2:1. The kicker light should be 1 stop brighter than the key light. The ratio between the background lights and the key light is also 2:1. The background should meter 1 stop brighter than the key. You have some flexibility in this setup. Try using a 1:1 light ratio between the key and the background lights, or try a 2:1 ratio where the kicker lights are 1 stop less than the key light. You'll get some interesting effects. In this last setup, we used a ring flash above and to the right of the model. We placed a bare head just behind the model to give us some intentional lens flare. The lighting ratio was 4:1. The bare bulb metered 2 stops brighter than the key light. Well, that about does it for this episode of Digital Photography 1-on-1. All of the lighting diagrams and sample photos from this episode can be found at studiolighting.net. And as usual, if you have a question that you'd like us to answer, just send it in to studiolighting@gmail.com. We'll see you next time.
This episode is brought to you by snapfactory.com and studiolighting.net. For more information about our workshops, visit snapfactory.com.